This is the Casa de Shenandoah. My name is Wayne Newton, and this is my home.
How does a man go from sold-out shows and screaming fans to losing it all? He was Mr. Las Vegas, known for the velvet voice, the charm, and the dazzling tuxedos. Wayne Newton wasn't just a performer, he was something more extraordinary. But while the world celebrated him, behind the scenes, something extremely heartbreaking and disturbing was happening. Wayne's money didn't just disappear overnight. It was a slow and painful process, and what looked like success on the outside was hiding years of financial stress and mounting debt. At 83, Wayne Newton still hasn't recovered from the devastating financial lows he had to deal with, and if you take a closer look at him, you'll see that this legend is carrying a weight and a story that hasn't been fully told until now. The rise of Mr. Las Vegas. Wayne Newton was born in 1942 in Norfolk, Virginia, not into wealth or luxury, but his roots were rich in culture and ambition. With a mix of Cherokee and German ancestry, Wayne's early life was far from glamorous. His family didn't have much, but they had heart and talent. It was this talent that Wayne would tap into from the moment he could walk, setting the stage for a career that would catapult him to superstardom. By the time he was just 6 years old, Wayne was already performing alongside his brother. The Newton brothers had big dreams and began making waves in their local Virginia scene before making a bold move to Phoenix, Arizona, where they began booking local gigs. Little did young Wayne know that this decision would be the first of many that would eventually shape him into one of Las Vegas's most iconic figures. The breakthrough came in 1962 when Wayne made his national television debut on The Jackie Gleason Show. This show was the pinnacle of American entertainment at the time, and being featured on it was nothing short of a golden ticket. It was here that Wayne's signature charm and velvet-voiced ballads first captured the hearts of millions. His smooth delivery and engaging stage presence were a breath of fresh air, and it quickly set him apart from his peers. By the early 1960s, Wayne Newton was no longer just a hopeful singer anymore. He was a household name. He was signed to Capitol Records, and his hit songs like Danke Schoen didn't just top the charts, they became ingrained in pop culture. Danke Schoen was more than just a hit. It was a statement. It showed Wayne's ability to connect with audiences across generations, and this was what transformed him from a local talent into an international star. But Wayne didn't stop there. His talent was versatile, and his catalog reflected proof. By the 1970s, Wayne became one of the biggest entertainers in Las Vegas. He would perform for multiple nights a week, and he even held the record for total crowd counts during his peak. Just like that, Las Vegas became his second home. Wayne wasn't just another performer in Vegas. He was a staple and a symbol of the Vegas lifestyle. The city's lights were his stage, and the audiences flocked to see him perform. It got to the point that Wayne Newton's name became synonymous with the Las Vegas Strip, and he was often referred to as Mr. Las Vegas himself. For decades, he played a pivotal role in shaping the city's entertainment scene, and he earned respect not only from fans, but also from his fellow performers. But Wayne's career was built on more than just his voice. The fans loved him for his brand. Wayne had an intoxicating mix of style, charm, and a deep connection to the city that gave him so much, and he eventually went on to become one of the city's most beloved and enduring figures. But while Wayne was rising to the top of his game, something darker was starting to brew beneath the surface. It wasn't long before Wayne's financial stability began to unravel in ways no one could have predicted. Dangerous deals and dark shadows. By the early 1980s, Wayne Newton had already solidified himself as the entertainment king of Las Vegas, with a reputation that stretched far beyond his music career. But in his pursuit of even greater wealth and power, Newton found himself diving into waters far more dangerous than the glamorous world of show business. In 1980, Wayne set his sights on one of the most ambitious moves of his career. He decided to purchase the iconic Aladdin Hotel and Casino on the Las Vegas Strip. You see, the Aladdin wasn't just any hotel, it was a symbol of Vegas luxury, and owning it would cement Wayne's legacy as not just a performer, but as a true mogul of the city. But as with many high-profile business ventures, things were never as simple as they seemed. In order to secure the deal, Wayne began working with various investors, including a man by the name of Guido Penosi, who was allegedly connected to organized crime. Penosi wasn't just any businessman, he was rumored to have ties to the mob, particularly with figures known to operate behind the scenes in Las Vegas, and it was this association that would come back to haunt Newton. The problem began in 1980. NBC aired an investigative report that connected Wayne Newton to organized crime. The network's exposé suggested that Wayne had used the help of mobsters like Penosi to secure the purchase of the Aladdin. This was no small accusation. Mob connections in Las Vegas were infamous, and the idea that a beloved entertainer might be involved in such shady dealings was a shocking revelation for many of his fans. The story made headlines and painted Wayne as a man whose star had become intertwined with the criminal underworld. Naturally, Newton didn't take kindly to these allegations. He immediately sued NBC for libel, insisting that the network's report was not only false, but also damaging to his carefully crafted image. After a lengthy legal battle, Wayne was initially awarded $19.3 million in damages. However, the amount was later reduced to $5.2 million, and then the entire judgment was eventually overturned by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal. But the damage to Wayne's reputation was already done. The accusations had planted a seed of doubt in the public's mind. People began to question if the clean-cut, charming performer had really played by the rules, or if there were darker forces lurking behind his success. The allegations were more than just an attack on his character. They were a turning point in Wayne Newton's career. His once innocent persona of the showman was replaced by whispers of questionable deals and murky business practices. He wasn't just an entertainer anymore. He was a man who had been associated with the dangerous world of organized crime. Suddenly, people were no longer just talking about his voice or his charm. They were questioning how far he had gone to climb the ranks of Vegas's elite. His relationship with Guido Penosi, regardless of the court ruling, continued to loom large in the media. It wasn't just about the hotel deal. It was about the kind of people he was willing to get involved with to make his dreams a reality. This wasn't the Vegas the public knew. This was a darker side of the city, one that even the brightest stars weren't immune to, and this was just the beginning. As the 1980s progressed, Wayne's once stellar career began to face even bigger challenges. The mob connection scandal would prove to be the beginning of the financial collapse that was just around the corner. The pressure of maintaining his wealth, his businesses, and his public image would push Wayne to make decisions that would further unravel the empire he had built. The financial fallout. Wayne Newton's Las Vegas empire wasn't built overnight. Over the decades, he had slowly crafted a lifestyle that was the very definition of luxury. But behind the velvet curtains, cracks were beginning to show. In the 1980s and 90s, although he was performing nearly every night and still enjoying fame and wealth, Newton's financial troubles had begun to mount, and this problem would threaten everything he had worked so hard to build. The root of Wayne Newton's financial collapse can be traced to his lavish spending habits. As one of the most recognized entertainers in the world, Wayne lived the life of a true Vegas mogul. From mansions to expensive cars to an entourage that often traveled with him, nothing seemed out of reach for him. However, all these luxuries came at a cost, and Wayne's financial management left much to be desired. By the time the 1990s and early 2000s rolled around, Newton owed millions in debts and unpaid taxes, and it was only a matter of time before the Internal Revenue Service came knocking and demanding payments that Wayne simply couldn't afford. In 1992, the debt had spiraled out of control, and it was reported that Wayne owed between $20 million in debts and over $341,000 in unpaid taxes. Things got so bad that Wayne was forced to declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy in order to restructure his finances. Chapter 11 allows a business or individual to continue operations while reorganizing debt, but it was a humiliating moment for the entertainer. Wayne's financial troubles were no longer just a private matter. They immediately became public. His bankruptcy proceedings were plastered all over the media, turning what had once been an inspiring career into a cautionary tale about the dangers of overspending and poor financial management. But the problems didn't stop there. It wasn't just taxes and mounting bills. Lawsuits seemed to follow him wherever he went, further draining his resources. The more people Wayne owed money to, the more they came for him in the courts. The public was stunned. Wayne Newton, the man who had sung his way into the hearts of millions, now found himself facing the very real consequences of his unchecked extravagance. But despite the pressure and the lawsuits, Wayne was determined not to back down. He refused to let his financial downfall be the end of his career, and so he kept performing night after night in an attempt to earn the money he desperately needed to pay down the mountain of debt. However, the decision to keep performing was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it provided him with the cash flow he needed to make payments. On the other, it meant that Wayne had to work harder than ever, all while dealing with the embarrassment of his public financial crisis. What had once been a celebration of his talent now felt like a desperate hustle to maintain his lifestyle and meet his obligations. But the financial issues weren't just affecting Wayne's career, they were also taking a toll on his personal relationships. His struggles were no longer confined to the stage or boardrooms. They had eaten deep into his private life, straining friendships and partnerships that he had relied on for years. Take his longtime friendship with fellow entertainer Tony Orlando, for example. Their bond had once been unshakable, built on mutual respect and years of shared experiences in the entertainment industry. But as Wayne's financial troubles deepened, things began to go sour. Some of the people closest to him started to question his decisions, wondering if his choices and lifestyle were more of a burden than a benefit. But what happened with Tony Orlando was only one of many relationships that would face tension and strain as the consequences of Wayne's financial mismanagement became more pronounced. As his money problems grew, so did the fractures in his circle. And Wayne was about to learn that sometimes the price of fame is more than just money. Tony Orlando and the bugging accusation. By the late 1990s, Wayne Newton's career began to take a different turn. He wasn't just the crooner and Vegas legend anymore. He was diving into multiple business ventures with fellow entertainers. One of his boldest moves during this time was partnering with Tony Orlando, a well-known singer and TV personality, for a new theater project in Las Vegas. They named it The Talk of the Town, which was coined from their initials, and the duo hoped to turn it into a hotspot for entertainment. The plan was ambitious. With a capacity of 2,100 seats, they were aiming to attract big crowds and make their mark on the Las Vegas Strip. However, the reality of their new venture was far less glamorous than what they had imagined. From the very beginning, attendance was a problem. The theater rarely filled more than 1,000 seats. That meant a lot of empty chairs, missed opportunities, and financial losses. As the months dragged on, the situation only got worse, and it became clear that their business was not the success they had hoped for. The constant lack of crowds put more and more strain on their financial situation, and soon they couldn't even afford the $1 million lease they had signed for the venue. As if the money issues weren't enough, things took a sharp turn when Orlando's son discovered something shocking. While in the private office that he and Newton shared, he stumbled upon several recording devices hidden in the room. It didn't take long for Tony Orlando to find out, and he was furious. He accused Wayne Newton of spying on him, suggesting that Newton was secretly listening to his private conversations. This accusation was a bombshell. Tony, understandably upset, didn't waste any time. He confronted Wayne about the bugging devices, but Newton denied being involved. However, despite his denials, the damage was done. Trust between the two had been shattered, and in no time, Tony walked away from the partnership. He ended his professional relationship with Wayne, and the fallout was swift. For Wayne, losing Tony Orlando as a business partner was a massive blow. Tony had been a major figure in the Las Vegas entertainment world, and having him as an ally was something that could have propelled his career and reputation forward. Instead, he was left holding the bag and the theater all alone. But even with the theater under his control, things didn't improve for Wayne. His professional reputation, already strained by his financial issues and past controversies, took another hit. Fans, critics, and the public at large started questioning his character. The bugging accusations, whether true or not, painted him in a much darker light. He went from being a beloved Vegas icon to someone whose trustworthiness was now in question. The entire situation was messy. and the public drama surrounding it was a spectacle. People who had once looked up to Wayne were now skeptical about his actions. The scandal wasn't just about the failed business venture. It was about the kind of person he had become in the eyes of those who once admired him. In the aftermath of the fallout, Wayne did what he knew best. He returned to the stage. But this time, it wasn't just to entertain. It was a way to try and make up for the financial mess he had found himself in. Performing became even more critical for him as the pressure to pay off mounting debts continued. However, despite his best efforts, it wasn't enough to smooth over the cracks in his career. But this feud with Tony Orlando wasn't the only stain on Wayne Newton's legacy. As his financial troubles deepened, another scandal would soon erupt that would cause even more public embarrassment. Casa de Shenandoah turns into a nightmare. Wayne Newton's legacy as a Vegas legend didn't just come from his performances, it came from his luxurious lifestyle. And at some point, Wayne wanted something more. He began the search for a personal, luxurious space that would symbolize his wealth, status, and love for animals. That dream manifested into Casa de Shenandoah, a sprawling 39.5-acre estate in the heart of Las Vegas. This was no ordinary mansion. It was a grand reflection of Wayne's success and his love for the finer things in life. Nestled in the Nevada desert, the estate was the epitome of luxury. It housed Arabian horses, exotic birds, and a collection of luxury cars, everything a wealthy man would want to showcase. For Wayne, Casa de Shenandoah wasn't just a home. It was a statement and a physical manifestation of all the success he had achieved over decades of hard work, both in show business and in his personal ventures. It became a symbol of his dominance in Vegas, an icon almost as well known as Wayne himself. But as the years went by, what was once a dream estate slowly transformed into something much more complicated, and ultimately, it became a financial and legal nightmare. In the early 2010s, Wayne Newton partnered with CSD LLC, a company led by Lacey and Dorothy Harbour, to turn Casa de Shenandoah into a tourist attraction. His vision was clear. They planned to open the estate to the public and transform it into a museum that showcased his life, his career, and his famous home. The plan included offering guided tours, setting up a gift shop for fans, and even turning part of the estate into a wedding venue. Newton saw this as a chance to make money, share his history with the public, and keep the estate alive with visitors long after he had moved on to other ventures. At first, the idea sounded like a good one. After all, Wayne Newton was a staple of Vegas entertainment, and a museum dedicated to his career seemed like it would be a hit with fans who had followed him for decades. The estate was already a well-known part of the Vegas landscape. Who wouldn't want to take a peek behind the gates of Casa de Shenandoah? However, things started to go south almost immediately. As the renovation process began, tensions quickly flared between Wayne and the company he partnered with. One of the main points of contention was the handling of the estate during the renovations. Wayne was allegedly asked to vacate the property while construction and improvements were made. However, according to Wayne, the company refused to let him return to his own home once work started. This led to a series of legal battles, with Newton suing the company for breaching their contract and mishandling the estate. He argued that the company had mishandled the renovation process, and his relationship with them deteriorated even further. However, the company argued that Wayne had refused to move out of the house for the renovation to take place in a bid to stall the project. But it wasn't just the legal disputes that caused the project to implode. Neighbors in the area began to complain about the constant traffic and the noise caused by the renovations. Las Vegas, while known for its bustling tourist attractions, wasn't always welcoming to large-scale projects that disrupted the peace of residential neighborhoods. With the estate drawing in visitors for tours and other events, the local community wasn't happy with the increased traffic and the disturbances that came with it. Despite these challenges, Newton pressed on, but it became clear that the dream of turning Casa de Shenandoah into a successful tourist destination was slipping away. The tours didn't attract the kind of crowds they had hoped for, and the estate struggled to generate the level of revenue necessary to cover its ongoing costs. What was supposed to be a legacy project for Wayne Newton turned into a financial burden that he couldn't seem to escape. As the legal battles wore on, It was clear that the project was spiraling out of control. Newton found himself embroiled in disputes with both the company he had partnered with and the city of Las Vegas itself. The dream of sharing his legacy with the public had slowly turned into a financial pit that seemed to consume everything in its path. In the end, Casa de Shenandoah couldn't sustain itself as a tourist attraction. The estate, once a symbol of Wayne's success, was sold off in 2016, and the sale marked the end of an era for Newton, who had hoped to keep the estate as a lasting part of his legacy. It was a bitter end to a project that had consumed so much of his time, energy, and resources. But beyond the financial losses, the whole scandal added another layer of complication to Wayne Newton's already troubled reputation. He had once been a symbol of Vegas glitz and glamour, but now, with the failure of Casa de Shenandoah, his public image was taking a serious hit. Fans who had once admired him began to see him as someone whose dreams were falling apart. And while he still remained a beloved figure in some circles, his reputation as a business mogul took a serious hit. But this money pit wasn't the only thing draining Wayne Newton. His financial troubles were far from over, and the real test of his legacy would come from the mounting debts and never-ending court cases that followed him into the later years of his life. Former employees began suing him for unpaid wages, further complicating his already unfortunate situation. These suits added to the growing pile of legal battles, with each one threatening to chip away at the fortune he had worked so hard to build. The legal bills kept growing, and little by little, they drained his finances. What used to be a shining career was now buried under court cases, and every new loss hit his wallet hard. As the years went on, Wayne Newton's name became more closely associated with lawsuits than with his music. Headlines began to focus on his legal troubles rather than his hits, and his once polished image as the Mr. Las Vegas of the entertainment world started to fade. The public's fascination with his career turned into fascination with his courtroom battles, and every new lawsuit seemed to add fuel to the fire. In the end, these never-ending legal challenges not only drained his finances but also tarnished his legacy. The man who once sang velvet-voiced ballads on stage became a figure synonymous with scandal, courtrooms, and financial collapse. What was once a respected career in entertainment now felt overshadowed by years of legal drama. And as lawsuits continued to pile up, Wayne Newton found himself fighting not just for his wealth but for his reputation, which seemed to slip further and further away with every new courtroom battle. But now at 83, with so much behind him, there is one lingering question. What's left for Wayne Newton? What's he currently up to? Well, the answer to this question and how Wayne Newton currently lives will surprise you. Still hustling at 83. Despite a lifetime filled with incredible highs, devastating lows, and a string of headlines that painted him in a less than flattering light, Wayne Newton is still out there performing. At 83, after decades of lawsuits, bankruptcies, and public scandals, you'd think he'd be ready to step away. But Wayne's love for the stage, his deep connection with music, and his undeniable need to keep going keep him performing, even if his life hasn't turned out the way he once dreamed. In 2021, Newton faced a serious challenge, a spinal injury that could have ended his career. Yet, in true Wayne Newton fashion, he wasn't ready to throw in the towel. He said time and time again that his heart belongs to the stage. It's where he feels most alive, and it's where he feels his greatest connection to his audience. Even after all the financial turmoil and personal battles, Wayne's desire to perform never faded. These days, Wayne doesn't headline the massive shows of the past. His schedule is much lighter, but he's still out there, engaging with his fans in an intimate setting. His new show, Wayne Up Close and Personal, gives his fans a chance to see a more vulnerable side of him. The performance is smaller, more personal, and at venues where the intimacy of the space allows Wayne to share not just his voice, but also stories from his incredible journey. It's as if the stage is no longer just his livelihood, but a way for him to connect with the fans who've stuck by him all these years. But as much as Wayne loves the stage, there's no denying the financial pressures that still loom. His debts, the years of legal battles, and the massive lifestyle he's maintained for so long mean that performing is also a necessity. The music may be in his blood, but the reality is that Wayne is still trying to pay off the very lifestyle that almost destroyed him. It's almost bittersweet to watch him now. This man, who once ruled Las Vegas, commanding the spotlight, is now taking a step back to perform in a quieter, more modest way. He may no longer fill the grandest theaters in the city, but there's a sense of resilience in his smaller performances. His fans are still there and they still adore him. They cheer for him, not just for the man they see on stage, but for the journey he's lived and the determination he's shown. Wayne Newton at 83 is a testament to perseverance. His career may not be what it once was, but his spirit remains unbroken. Whether you see him as a legend or a man who's been caught up in a whirlwind of his own making, there's no denying that his story isn't over yet. But what do you think? Was Wayne Newton a victim of betrayal and bad luck? Or was he the architect of his own downfall? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you love juicy deep dives into celebrity lives, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new video.